Through this monthly webinar series, we would like to enhance awareness of the socio-ecological production landscapes and seascapes, or the Satoyama concept. The concept is anchored on the principle, or we call it the philosophy, of living in harmony with nature. Satoyama initiative has been approved by the Conference of the Parties of the Convention on Biological Diversity in 2010 as a strategic approach in biodiversity conservation, also ecosystem landscape conservation.
The Philippine sepals are threatened due to population pressure brought by rapid migration of families suffering from poverty in the lowlands and land use policy. And we can see all these problems lead to the degradation of our sepals. These cultural landscapes continue to fight over the impacts of poverty, population pressure, and proliferation of modern agricultural practices, which have exacerbated the erosion of indigenous knowledge system. The sepals sustainability is one strategy to conserve our rich biodiversity.
In the Philippines, we have seen how degraded our natural resources are. So there's really a lack of the traditional knowledge as well as the deep appreciation when it comes to their landscape. And we have seen out-migration. Once they're able to find more stable jobs, the Ifugaos, both youth and the working population, would really migrate outside of Ifugao, leaving the Ifugao rice terraces abandoned. So it's really important that given the wide variation in the socio-ecological makeup of sepals globally and locally, as well as in their political and economic context, individual communities will be at the forefront of developing appropriate measures for their unique circumstances.
So yung challenge ko sa inyo for this one is to change the way we grow food and ask ourselves, are my actions beneficial to the landscape? Permaculture is one way. It's a design philosophy, a design framework na you can use to grow food in a way na not just for growing food or for food security, but also you have in mind yung health ng inyong landscape, ng ecosystem, and of species na nakatira doon.
Without any external inputs, we can do agriculture permanently because one of the aspects of ecosystem services could be harnessed when all of this place is intact. So we just basically harnessing what's in the environment would provide us. So now people would initially thought about the sepals and then the permaculture design. What are these two concepts all about, or practices or movements? Are they opposing forces? And it's very clear that our speaker really told us that the sepals is based on the landscape or seascape ecosystem reliance, where the permaculture is about ecological design system. So instead of viewing them as opposing forces, so to speak, quote and quote, we could rather create a harmony, so that the interactive components, the synergy and interconnectivity of those two components, the sepals and permaculture, because they are operating the same platform. We have the different landscapes and seascapes, but consciously designing to augment both two aspects desired for sustainability of our ecosystem, that we could harness a much better ecosystem services without jeopardizing our environment.
So we have to start earlier in restoring our ecosystem, and I have to say, it's not an easy task. Practically, we are challenged by awareness, we are challenged by lack of resources, we are challenged by climate change, we are challenged by economic system, we are challenged by government policy imposition, all sort of things. So don't ask me when is. I think it is a time to take action. After this seminar, start to think about collecting seeds. Reconnect with your rural friends. Ask for some local seeds. How do you do that planting? Engaging your kids. Take action.
We can also maybe level up this idea of ecosystem to not just a plainly homogeneous area in our environment, but rather looking at distinct patches, or maybe like in the context of a Satoyama is a collection of different land uses or patches. So maybe an environmental unit that we could restore, or that we could accelerate its recovery, is at that level where we could see different patches of lands.
The civil society organization play a vital role in promoting sustainable socio-ecological production landscape and seascape utilization and management by connecting various stakeholders to support local communities, and also by producing policy recommendation through on-the-ground experience and disseminating information and story of self-sustainable management to public. One of the very interesting secret or tip to work with government organization is polite but persistent. This is the term that they use. You cannot stop or cannot give up to make the governmental side understand your objective. And then if they cannot accept the way that you work, so start to talk to them and make them learn and adjust the way of working together, because finally both sides has the same goal to conserve natural forests or natural resources, but the mean or the way of working may be different. So just try to find the same the point that everyone can collaborate.
And hopefully this will spread out not only in Thailand but also in areas where such undertaking is applicable. Hopefully the involvement of civil society groups and other organizations towards restoring seascapes and landscapes will continue, and more groups or individuals will join. We need to restore and sustain our sociological production landscape and seascapes for the benefit of the humanity and the environment.
All right, good morning everyone. Good morning. Naririnig po ba ako? Am I clear? Is my audio clear po? Ayan. So thank you so much, Sir June, for responding, and Sir Jess. Again, welcome to our webinar series entitled Revitalizing Socio-Ecological Production Landscapes and Seascapes. Okay, so let me just check our chat box and see who's here. And yung mga nag-greet po sa atin. And ayan, so good morning po. Good morning, Sir Jeffrey from Oika Sustainable Solutions. And Sir Muhammad Riza from the MSU Maine. Good morning po. Good morning, Sir Luigi. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Sir Giovanni from the Central Philippine State University, Cabancalan, Negros Occidental. Wow, ayan. Good morning po. Good morning, Sir Charles. And for everyone else, you are free to use the Zoom chat, and even those who are watching on our Facebook Live. So again, you may share or send this the Facebook Live link to your peers or to your colleagues or anyone who would know would benefit from our topic for today. Okay, so again, welcome, and my name is Anne. I will be your host for today. And this webinar aims to raise awareness on the conservation and sustainable use of the socio-ecological production landscapes and seascapes, or SEPLs, through a series of online talks from the Satoyama-Satoumi principles and associated practices as approaches to sustainable management and biodiversity conservation. So before we begin, today's topic is entitled Preliminary Assessment of the Flora and Fauna Assemblages in Satoyama-Satoumi Landscapes in Butuan City. And this will be followed by a discussion and an open forum. So please note that the webinar is recorded and the video will be made available in our website and YouTube channel. So let me just remind everyone of our webinar guidelines. So number one, kindly keep your microphones muted, especially when our speaker and discussant is presenting. So if you have any questions or clarifications while the talk is ongoing, please send your questions using the Zoom chat or the Facebook Live comment, and we will take note of your questions and acknowledge them during the open forum. We will also send the link to the evaluation form after the open forum, and the certificates will be sent to the email indicated in the form. Okay, so that is all for our gentle reminders. And to formally start our program today, on behalf of Project 1 of the Emerging Interdisciplinary Research, Building Climate Smart Communities, or EIDR-bSMART Program, the Philippine Satoyama team, we also welcome everyone, and we hope that you will all learn from this webinar. So originally, the Satoyama came from the Japanese word Satoyama-Satoumi, which is anchored from the principle of living in harmony with nature. And this event aims to enhance the awareness of the SEPLS, or the Satoyama-Satoumi concept here in the Philippines, as a strategic approach to biodiversity and ecosystem landscape and seascape conservation. Okay, so let's now proceed to the webinar proper. I know that you are all excited to hear our speaker for today and know more about our topic. So let me introduce to you our speaker. Our speaker is a professor at the Caraga State University. He obtained his Bachelor of Science in Biology at Mindanao State University and took his Master's in Biology at the Central Mindanao University. He finished his PhD in Botany at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. He has a wide array of research interests, including computational ecology, environmental science, and aquatic biodiversity. He is currently the Research and Development Lead Implementer of the Caraga State University and the Program Leader Proponent for the Niche Centers in the Region, or the NICER project of Caraga State University. And he is also the EIDR-bSMART Program very own Field Supervisor in Butuan City. So ladies and gentlemen, let us all give a warm virtual clap to Dr. Jess Jumawan. Dr. Jess, good morning po, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne, for your generous introduction. Ayan, we are here on another webinar series with our with our SEPLS, no, socio-ecological production landscapes and seascapes. And this is our ilang series na batuan, nakalimutan ko na.
This is our 7th na po, sir.
Okay, 7th na, no? So parang when we started our first it seems like a couple of weeks ago, but nasa 7 na pala tayo. So to everyone, to our reach in our virtual forum all over the Philippines, we would like to welcome everybody for our series, webinar series. So this morning, I would like to present, and let me share the screen first. Ayun. Okay, hold on for medyo naglag sa akin. Okay na ba? Makita na ba yung
Yes, sir. Kita po yung presentation.
presentation? Medyo naglag kasi sa akin. Is it okay na ba?
Yes, sir. Clear na po. Full screen.
All right. So, pleasant morning to all. And the project about Satoyama and Satoumi initiatives in collaboration with different universities in the Philippines. One site is implemented in Butuan City. So as one of the sites. So along with other sites in Visayas, which is in Leyte, and one is also in Bicol. All of these are simultaneously conducting assessments and in support of our project. So our my presentation this morning is on preliminary assessment on flora and fauna assemblages of Satoyama and Satoumi in Butuan City. And we've been talking about SEPLs or socio-ecological production landscapes more often here. And that is our, we call it a mosaic of different ecosystem types. So we have a variety of those. And the goal is to manage via interactions between ecosystems so that we could be harness all the potential benefits or ecosystem services for human well-being, but at the same time we preserve, or at least we conserve, preserve, and promote sustainability of our ecological systems or ecosystems. So this initiative in Japan is called Satoyama for such landscapes, and Satoumi is also consequently coined to refer the seascapes. So all of this would harness all the benefits for human well-being, all of our benefits. At the same time, we preserve the integrity of our ecosystem, while we harness the ecosystem services and maintaining. So this is our intention or our intent. And these are the frameworks that highlight the human-nature interaction where it is expected to be at its best. I point out from Sir Buot's research himself. So that is our goal about this SEPLS initiative anchored on this project. So the template that we follow for the Satoyama is from the Saito et al. In 2020, which is clearly presented in this infographics. So we have the ecosystem, and this is a mosaic. And in the nature, we have biodiversity of these ecological systems. And this is all what the Mother Earth gives for human beings to enjoy all of the benefits. But if we are not able to manage it, then we at the same time it will have a repercussion effect to us human beings if we are not going to manage what the Mother Earth offers to the human beings. So along with that are the ecosystem services of all our ecological systems. We have supporting services, regulating, culture, and provisioning. This has been mentioned in the past webinar series, so I'm not going to explain it further. And all of these ecosystem services will promote well-being or nature's benefits to people. So all of this can be harnessed if we remain this ecological system intact. So if we are going to preserve the ecological system, we would be able to harness. So almost ad infinitum. So if we are going to preserve these ecological systems. So nature's contributions to people will be preserved for a longer time. So it will promote human improvement or human well-being and quality of life. That is the goal of the Satoyama and Satoumi initiative. Right. So, ayun. The collaboration of projects from UPLB, UPOU, and partner agencies like Caraga State University and from Visayas State University and Bicol State University has following this kind of platform or format. So we have 4 major projects. So all of the projects contribute for the EIDR-bSMART blending of multimedia approach and Satoyama-Satoumi principles for building climate smart communities. Now, on the project one, we focus more of our effort is on the assessment of the biophysical environment in selected communities, which is vulnerable to climate change. So we identify the major ecosystems and so on and so forth. But at the same time, we also provide data on the ground needed by the project to 3, and 4, so that we could be able to work on with the objectives of the EIDR rather, bSMART program. All right. So why Butuan City? So the present of the mosaic of Satoyama and Satoumi landscapes is identified na in the past, no? And there is a close interaction between local people, because we also have indigenous communities here, the Butuanons and the other Lumads, no? And all of these have a mosaic, no, of different ecosystems. And we know in Butuan, we are a couple of meters below sea level. So Butuan City is one of the areas in the Philippines that is highly vulnerable to climate changes. So water also from different municipalities and provinces in Agusan del Sur, Compostela Valley, or the Davao de Oro now, and some parts in Davao, they empty, no, via the Agusan Marsh. So in Agusan Sur and Compostela Valley previously, or Davao de Oro now, we have Agusan Marsh system, no? And all of that during the Agusan Marsh act like a sponge. So during the rainy season, it absorbs a lot of water, and it releases downstream and towards via the Agusan River, and it empties in Butuan Bay, no, area, which is passing through Butuan City. So the area is really prone to climate change, floodings, for example. We have regular occurrences of floodings. So for the identified Satoyama, we have one barangay in Barangay Masaw, and these are the different attributes. It's about 512, no? Or this is our Satoumis. No, sorry for that. We have 512 hectares composed of agriculture, aqua farming, residential, and commercial, and we have about this population, more than 2,000 population. While our Satoyama landscape in Barangay Tungao, sorry for that, we interchanged it. And on the other hand, Barangay Tungao has 14,000 hectares. This is a larger because this is formerly an forest industrial. So we have remnants here of secondary forest remnants. We have the NALCO previously, the Nasipit Lumber Company, which would have area reserved for forest areas, no? So the timber is harvested, no, by the NALCO, and we have timber-based, no, industrial. At the same time, we have agricultural areas, no, and residential as well, with a population of more than 6,000 individuals. So these are our identified locations or area of interest. This one is our Satoumi, some mangroves, Barangay Masaw, and these are our areas, no? So here we consolidated seaward, the middle, and then the landward mangrove types, no? So in the Philippines, we have species that are highly adapted for seaward. So that is our basis for identifying seaward, middle, and landward sites. In the Satoyama landscape in Barangay Tungao, we have the remnant of a primary forest, now grows into a secondary forest, but it is now an agroforest. So now may mga plantings na rin. And we have here the agro ecosystems and grasslands, mainly grasslands, or we call it scrubland na rin, no? And we have here the riparian ecosystems along with other land uses na rin. So these are the major ecosystem types that we have identified. And for the pre-assessment activities, before the project started, we have so many meetings, different layers of meetings from the UPLB, UPOU, and different state universities. until we came up with the MOA signing. And then we have the orientation for the program level, and then we have the project level orientations. And there are several layers also of that. And along the way, we have involved our stakeholders, no? So we have here the different LGUs, our students, and other partners. Then before that, we had a program level training, but flora and fauna, the program research program designed which strategy will be implemented for the Satoyama and Satoumi landscape data gathering, in the field. And there were virtual trainings, and those principles we also perform it before we conducted. We had our own training also here, so that we could be able to execute all of the needed, so parameters will be measured once we go in the field, because it's not easy when you go in the field and then you forgot something. So we had our own version of training as well in preparation, and along with a series of different coordination with the CENRO, the DNR, the LGU in Butuan City, and then the barangays, different the 2 barangays. And we have on-site evaluations and visitations before we conducted, and we went to a lot of people, and then we had the gratuitous permit application. In our case, we have a good relationships with the DNR here, so every time that we visited, they always give us a very warm welcome, so hopefully after this we are also presenting our results to our partners in DNR, and then we have the field sampling, biophysical assessments. And this is the project based methodology that is implemented throughout the Philippines, and it is also implemented in Butuan City. And we have here the processing of the soil and other environmental parameters. Then we have the vegetation sampling procedures, and then the data analysis. And these are the flora assessment we perform in the field for both Satoyama and Satoumi landscape. And we have involved our personnel and our partners, and some of our students were also present in the field doing along with our research activity, so mga thesis students in particular. Then we also have the fauna assessment. So we have here the program level methodology implemented also in Butuan. Then we have here the different faunal groups and the different measurements and data analysis. So this morning I will be presenting our initial findings, and still until now we are still consolidating our data, and we have gathered tons of information from the field, and it will take us some time to process everything. So these are our actual faunal assessment activities conducted day and night and early morning, of course. This is how the fauna sampling was performed. And then the measurements, and then the other parameters data. Now, this is a result in Satoumi in Barangay Masaw. Here we have 7 amphibian species, 3 rodent, 20 mangrove species. All of these are 3 pa lang yung aming na-consolidate. But we have data already sa shrubs and other vegetation. Pero what we'll be presenting are mainly on the trees, because as we have said, hindi pa namin na complete yung data analysis. And we have 14 species on birds and 11 reptiles. In the barangay Tungao, which is our Satoyama, we have 9 amphibian species. We have 5 rodents, and some of these could change. Maybe my addition or the same identification, but this is more likely our confident identification as of the moment. and we have 19 species of birds and 17 reptiles, and we have 76 different plant species in our Satoyama landscape. So this will be the baseline data for the Satoyama and Satoumi landscape. Should we proceed on permanently relating this to Butuan City to be the Satoyama and Satoumi. So hopefully the next step would be something like that. So there are a total of 98 floral species, and faunal species is about 59. So I think we are confident that we have these results presented, no, majority of the species in the area. Although if we stage some more, maybe there will be additional couple of species, but our estimate is that about 90% of the species are already covered in our sampling effort. So in terms of endemicity, we have 7 flora endemics and 23 faunal endemics. So there are 5 amphibians, 8 reptile species and bird species, and all of these are based on IUCN in our DAO, no, DNR. So in terms of conservation status, 94 are least concerned, 7 are vulnerable, 6 are nearly threatened, and 2 are endangered, no, identified species. So these are some of the results or pictures of the flora in terms of endemicity, in their status as threatened or vulnerable. We have here the following species that are native: the agatis, then the shorea, and then all of the Philippine endemic trees. No, so we focus here on trees, and here the initially identified as shrubs. No. So these are the list and the different sources. We have here the DAO, and then the IUCN status, of which we based our classification. And in terms of the fauna, these are the different endemics, threatened, and vulnerable fauna. So we have here different amphibians, reptiles, the birds, and even butterfly flora. So I'm going to skip on this a little bit. And these are the list, no, according along with the IUCN and Philippine Red List status. And these are the characteristic of the species indices or diversity indices. So we have species richness, abundance, Simpson and Shannon diversity. We have dominance and evenness. These are the characteristics of different indices in the various sampling plots. So we have the total of 23 and 23 plots for Satoyama and Satoumi sites respectively. So this one is the presentation on the profile of the plots, sampling plots in Flora, also in Barangay Tungao. So here we could be able to see that the fauna, no, herpeto fauna, we have here 3 transects that would correspond to major ecosystem types. So here we have the transect 2, which is more prominent in terms of herpetofauna, which is our agro scrubland, no? The agro grassland ecosystem. And we also have transect 2 for both Shannon and Simpson diversity for the same ecosystem type. All right, no. So here, in terms of the, all right. So here in Barangay Tungao also, no. Okay, so this one is the characteristic of the trees that we have measured. Oh, sorry. Here in Barangay Masaw, which is a Satoyama-Satoumi site, our mangroves are more prominent in the seaward and landward, but the bigger 3 metrics, the DBH, the total height, merchandable height, and then the crown cover or the crown spread are basically so when you go to the landward, the mangroves just basically increases in its sizes. We have computed the species importance value along the relative values of relative frequency. Sorry about that. We have, oops,
We have in the mangroves, we have the top 5 species important values, which is Abyssinia officinalis, Abyssinia alba, Rhizophora apiculata, Abyssinia marina, and Rhizophora mucronata. And we performed cluster analysis and ordination using a Bray-Curtis index of similarity. And here is our 3 main ecosystem types. But now this could be an indicator that there are already a mixing of the plots, no? So meaning to say some areas that are characterized by mostly seaward have the same resemblances na sa middle ward, no? And from the middle to landward, there's already a similarity of those characteristics in terms of sampling plots. So we have identified that there are 3 major communities, and in terms of the relationships of these communities, the seaward and then the middle are more similar. So there is a overlapping of the characteristics, and the community C, which is our landward, is completely different from the other. So this one is based on the abundance data. So all of the data analysis are performed using the R software, using different ecological packages. So in terms of the community structure, we have here the different species, no? In the cluster, we perform characteristics of the plots. Here we have the associated species or the species determinants in each community type. So here in this kind of analysis, we could see that the community A, our seaward, and B have are more similar, no? So in this gradient, we have shown that the direction of community A or the seaward is towards resemblances with community B, and then the landward is somewhat different from these 2 major community types. So here we have in Barangay Tungao as well. In Barangay Tungao, we have the agroforest, which is a remnant of a primary forest, and now beginning to resemble na into a primary forest. But there's already planted agricultural plantations. And then we have agro ecosystem and grassland and riparian, no? So these are our characteristics. The agroforest and agro ecosystem has more number of individuals because people are beginning to planting more species, no? So here we also have agroforest has a better performance in terms of by 3 metrics. And in terms of species importance values, Shorea contorta is the highest. We have Cocos nucifera, this already planted, and then planted also as the Gymnelina arborea, and then we have Acacia mangum and Spathodea campanulata, no? So these are agroforests. So there's already a remnant of the natural trees and then planted trees, no? That is the story that we could get in the species importance values. So we perform also a similar procedure, and one ecosystem type is composed of agroforest and and riparian, no? There's a similarity here, and the agroforest mainly, and this is mainly agro ecosystem and grassland characteristics. So this is very surprising to us that agro ecosystem has similarity with the riparian. So the way we view it is that the riparian is also a remnant from the primary forest. So there is a natural resemblances in terms of the species. And here we also have a similar profile of the 3 communities, and the distinct community is the riparian one. So these are the species plots profile. These are the influential species of our 3 communities. And at the same time, our gradients of community A and B are more similar, the agroforest and then the agro ecosystem grassland, no? Because of the similar plantations, involvement of humans to plant more trees and more crops, no? And for the environmental factors, we measured or we computed environmental parameters using principal component analysis. So this one is the result in Barangay Masaw. there are 10 effective principal components. So this is a data reduction technique so that we consolidated the data into principal components, but at the same time maintaining the integrity of our volume of our data. No? So our first principal components is comprising 30 and 24% respectively. And that is what we used in our data analysis, the highest contributing principal components. So in terms of the principal components one, what are those variables that are influential in PC1? We have the smaller particles, the clay in the silt, which is associated with the diversity indices. For the principal component 2, we have the 3 metrics, the DBH, tree height, mercantile height, and then the crown cover, which is inversely related to gravel. No? So we portray that into a bar plot, and these are the different contributions. And we could see that the diversity indices are associated with the clay and then the silt. At the same time, fine silt also, no, or fine sand, no, smaller particles. And and we have also the 3 parameters which are associated with the evenness and then the elevation. Meaning to say, as you go to the landward, your 3 metrics becomes better, which is also our finding in the previous analysis. The 3 becomes bigger, no? So these are inversely related with the bigger particles, no? So meaning to say your mangroves grow best to smaller soil particles. So that is what the data is telling us. And in the barangay masa or the Satoumi, we have overlaid the sampling plots along with those environmental parameters, and similar story can be told, no, on that line. So this is basically data ordination of the environmental parameters to the sampling plots. So in the principal components analysis in Barangay Tungao, we have similar. We have 30% as the first PC and then 70% the second PC. That is what we used in the analysis. So environmental, the variables associated with principal components 1 are mainly 3 metrics: the DBH, total height, and mercantile height, which is inversely correlated to the species richness. So this is in PC2, we have the smaller particles associated with the 3 parameters. So here we could see that the species richness, Shannon, the diversity indicators are opposing, no, the 3 heights. So meaning to say, the species beginning to increase, then you will have smaller trees. No, so something like that is the story in our Satoyama site. And then the fine sediments are associated with evenness and elevation. No, so meaning to say, as you grow higher, you have a smaller. As you go lower, rather, you have a smaller soil particles downslope. Okay, the smaller. And then this is opposite with the higher, bigger particle size, which is associated with abundance. So meaning to say the higher abundance has a bigger soil particles. And the smaller particles in the lower elevation, particularly in the riparian ecosystem, you have here the silt, the fine sand, and the clay. It promotes evenness. No? So something like that is the story in our Satoumi landscape. And this is very important in understanding our landscapes. No? So here we have we have displayed, no, the biplot of the environmental parameters with the associated plots on our 3 ecosystem types. So the data that we have gathered here will greatly support or be able to describe our socio-ecological landscapes, no, our identified Satoyama and Satoumi landscapes. So this is very important component, so that knowing the different species, what are the species in terms of their endemicity, in terms of their status, and the relationship of the community is very crucial, so that we be able to know and determine or describe our ecosystems. So far, these are the data that we have collected and analyzed, and we have gathered data, and we are only a handful, no, to analyze and to do all of this data analysis. And that's my presentation. Sorry, medyo lumagpas akoan.
No problem.
For the presentation, lumagpas ng konti. But I would like to thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you very much. So I'm going to stop my presentation here.
Thank you very much, Doc Jess, for your presentation on the flora and fauna data collected in Butuan City, and for showing us the implications of the data presented using PCA and how this data could describe our Satoyama and Satoumi sites and landscapes in Butuan City. Okay, so if you have any questions for our speaker, please leave them on our Zoom chat box. And for our viewers on Facebook Live, kindly send your questions via comment section, and we will take note of your questions and we'll ask them after the discussion. Okay, so the link also of the evaluation form will be shared later on after the open forum. Let's now proceed to the discussion. Our guest discussant is a professor at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. He obtained his Bachelor of Science in Forestry and Master of Science in Community Development at UP Los Baños. He also obtained his Doctor of Philosophy in Environmental Science at the Seoul National University in South Korea. His research interests are climate change mitigation, coastal forestry, community development, and forest sustainability. He is recognized by the National Academy of Science and Technology Philippines, or NAST Philippines, as one of the outstanding young scientists for 2022 in recognition of his pioneering research on mangrove blue carbon and tree biomass modeling. Recently, he is appointed as the new director of the Forestry Development Center, College of Forestry and Natural Resources, University of the Philippines, Los Baños. So let us all give a warm virtual welcome to Dr. Dixon Gevaña. Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Dr.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. And thanks to Dr. June Buot for the kind invitation to be the discussant of this very good paper. Congratulations, Dr. Jess Jumawan of Caraga State. Nice to see you again. And I'm happy to listen to your presentation. Can't help but also share my recent engagement somewhere in Butuan. I visited it, I think 4 weeks ago. I was there, and with that engagement under the DOST RD Lead program of NRCP, we went. My partner is actually the ASCAT, no, Agusan State College for Agriculture and Technology, and we visited these potential sites for a collaborative research, not only between UPLB and ASCAT, but hopefully with the other universities, of course, of Caraga State, no. So we visited this nice place in Lake Mihaba, no, in Bunawan, Agusan del Sur, where Lolong was actually captured, no. And yeah, biodiversity is still there. I mean, people are enjoying the benefits of nature, like this one, the dalag, no. So it's one of the number one, no, how to say that, a local, not only local delicacy, but product, no, from the marsh. And although this is a very nice marsh, but so many gray areas for studies. And as you know, no, to our listeners, this Agusan Marsh is connected with the study site of our dear friends in the EIDR-SEPLS, no, headed by Dr. June Buot, and with Dr. Jess Jumawan, no, the Agusan River. So Agusan Marsh, Agusan River. Just a few points that I would like to share in response to the presentation. Of course, we have to situate almost everything that we're doing, research, development on nature, on global trends or global, movements like, the recent COP26. It underscored the need for more visible investments and actions to fight climate change, particularly capitalizing on nature. And assume many of you are already familiar with this, I would say concepts or terminologies. We have the nature-based solutions, eco-DRR, on disaster risk reduction, and ecosystem-based adaptation. The ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, which I'm involved in one of their component projects. We're looking at the EBA initiatives, some success or good practices being done in ASEAN Heritage Park. So this is basically the way forward. We have to capitalize on nature. We have to promote that nature should be not only revived but restored. I would say that perhaps over the past 2 decades or the past decade, bias is really in favor of renewable energy. It's really high time that we look at the wide myriad potential and benefits, advantages if we invest on nature-based climate solutions. So yeah, this particular topic on biodiversity assessment given to us, the way forward is really to take the next step on how we can integrate it in a broader framework. Particularly now we have this principle of ecosystem-based adaptation, whereby biodiversity conservation is just one of the pillars for EBA to happen. Conservation of biodiversity should contribute to adaptation of people and ecosystem, and also by doing that, people receive benefits. Their culture, traditions are also enriched and conserved. And that basically, by having this EBA, then for sure sustainable development will be will surely happen, or will be very much visible. And with all this, now, although the presentation for today is just initial study, a baseline perhaps for some of the ecosystem examined in Butuan and nearby areas. Now information should also be elevated in a way that they can be used for planning, and or actually there's a good news that the NAST formulated this Pagtanaw 2050 and STI foresight, whereby where I'm happy personally because there is a specific section on blue economy. I'm working on mangroves, and for a very long time mangroves are treated as not as important as other ecosystem, but now there's a blue economy, and hopefully having this Pagtanaw 2050 strategic foresight, we can anchor all our research and later on translating them into plans for the local government, national government, and align with this Pagtanaw 2050. Okay, let me also share that I can relate. I can relate with this engagement of yours on SEPLS, because we also had one way back 2021, but it's with another flavor. It's SEPLS with transformative change. So we did some studies, and let me just share briefly this one chapter in that book published by the authors, and their co-authors, Reconciling Community Livelihood Needs and Biodiversity Conservation. Because the focus of that book is, now you have SEPLS, how it helps create transformative changes. So right here, I just borrowed this photo from the book, but they included in their chapter community tree nursery at Chawaya Forest, where they're raising native species, beekeeping in the forest, tourist campsite, butterfly farming. And these are basically capitalizing on biodiversity to help people, improve their living condition, income sources, and also through rehabilitation, protection of the forest, they can have this livelihood that will also make them socioeconomically, in a way, resilient to the climate change impact. We also had one study, we did this case study in Alitas, but focusing on mangroves, of course, and looking at how people view SEPLS, no, socio-ecological protected landscape, how that particular approach or context of conservation help them perceive or realize that mangrove is very important. So we have this framework, but straightforward. Satoumi, if you have that, Satoyama, that will lead to resilience, climate resilience, and transformative change. And of course, mangroves, like mentioned by Dr. Jess Jumawan, they were able to capture some sites, no? And yeah, it's saying no, it's very important player or ecosystem in our landscape, seascape, because they serve, mangrove serves as a hinge. They connect land and sea, no? That's why they have critical ecosystem functions. They trap, the eroding sediments before they damage the corals. No, they are also filters. If Agusan Marsh is the kidney, at the coast is another filter. So they say that marshes are like a kidney of the ecosystem. They filter first. What more if you have a marsh, then river, and then at the end of the river you have mangroves. So you are protecting a lot of ecosystem, particularly the coastal. Yeah, and then very important that we understand, like in any problem, that we know the deepest reason, the foundational problem. For mangrove deforestation, for example, visible issues include illegal cutting, land use conversion, reclamation, you name it. But under that, we have to target foundational problem. And this includes the limited local commitment because of tenure insecurity and many others, poor governance, though we have a lot of policies, but the implementation is always limited. And of course, R&D gaps. No, not much, these are studied in mangroves. So we have to work on that particular gap. And this case study that I would like to share, although it's not really more on the biodiversity conservation, but we, for some angles relate to that, because this area used to be healthy, diverse area. A lot of mangrove species, and because of rampant fish pond conversion, got damaged, and they eventually left the fish pond owners, and community took over to rehab it. They started planting. Although in this photo, they only planted the rhizopora. But I would say that if you're going to look at the ecological context, there's no need to rehab this, because obviously the nature is already taking its course of rehab, of recovering. You just leave it, protect it, and then sooner or later, 7 years, 10 years, it will become vegetated again. And why Quezon? Is because of the disaster, like 2004 flood killing 1,600 people. So we asked the people, the community, what's the role of the mangroves and its biodiversity? Many of them said that our resilience to climate change, like floods, is commensurate to the area of mangroves that we protect and keep. And mangroves provide a shield from typhoon, strong wind, floods, and also additional income whenever we join, planting activities of the government and private sector. And given all those values, we want our mangroves to be a place where, we can bring our guests, tourists. So they're also planning for a tourism enterprise there. They even deputize fish warden. The local community is very active because of those many appreciation of the values. They even have this traditional knowledge that instead of during the event of typhoon, strong typhoon, some of them, instead of going to the evacuation area, they put up temporary shelter or nipa hut inside the mangrove. That's very very, how to say that, very smart. Because they are protected with storm surge. Perhaps there's a little flood coming in from the sea because of the increasing level during a storm event, but they are protected from tidal surge and also strong winds. And the best way forward is to do it collaborative. That's what we found out. Main players should be there doing the lead, which is the local community, local government, they are the main actors, but they need much support in terms of research, from like us, academe, and DNR, of course, should be also visible, and with this collaborative management, of course, there will be proper engagement in sensible management planning, rehabilitation the right way, science-based, and eventually will lead to the transformative change, human well-being, improved and ecosystem well-functioning. I am happy to see this framework. This is what we need in doing all our not only research and studies, but as a platform for creating policies and plans. This EIDR-bSMART. The project one provides the foundation of biophysical. It's very important that we understand what's already there. And project two, of course, the assessment of disaster. That is prospectively, because by 2050, 2100, Mindanao is expected to experience very, very long drought. So that is something that is quite alarming. That's why we understand our situation today and plan for that kind of potential future, which scientists are saying is very likely. And Mindanao is an agricultural center. We have a lot of areas, the growing crops for not only for local but for also for export demands. Yeah, and then of course, project for communities. That's my how to say that, one of my interests. And what's next? Let me end with this some not question, but perhaps some insights that I have after hearing the presentation. So biodiversity monitoring, I think it's we have to identify the threats and the hotspots. Although I got that this is a initial study, but very important that we target. We know the drivers and threats. Are there really threats? And where are they? Where are the hotspots? In integrated watershed and river basin management approach, that is, we call it reach to reap, but with the, looking at the Agusan River, it's connected with the Agusan Marsh, and the Agusan Marsh has a lot of, water sources upstream, as far as, if I remember it right, Bukidnon. And we have to know the dynamics, the interconnectivity, because if you only look at, doing management at, the outlet or the downstream, and the problems upstream are, continue to persist, that will be very, very challenging. It will keep on repeating and keep on worsening. Now, while we are trying to solve those issues downstream, still poor at best, because we cannot address those. So we have that kind of context. We need that kind of context, the integrated watershed. And we have to target my main issues by doing this integrated watershed approach. I believe that, as I have visited and I have asked some people during my stay there, mining may be illegal or legal elsewhere connected to the Agusan Marsh and Agusan Rivers. Still, I would say as a, a subtle issue. Planned deforestation activities, not only about, timber cutting, but even, where do we approve the road construction? For example, somewhere near the Agusan Marsh, they have constructed the road. What could be the potential, impacts of those, development? Other issues, and perhaps, very interesting to look, the agar wood cutting, and, talking about biodiversity, what's the role of this agar wood? But now many people are somehow crazy because not crazy, but really interested to invest on this because of so many economic benefits. But growing them on the wild or cutting illegally from the wild, it should be looked, because it is a major gray area. Massive sedimentation, as I visited just one part of the Agusan Marsh, which is the Minahaba Lake. It was very shallow. And when I asked what could be the possible reason, before they said that it's deep, even though the water level is changing, but relatively deeper in the past, but now it's a shallower. That means it's sedimentation problem. And where are those sediments coming from? Maybe, too much agriculture, or mining, all those sorts, no? And we have to somehow include that, if not on this particular study being done by your team, but maybe a proposal in the future to look at it interconnectively and collaboratively, could be led by SUCs, no? Climate change mitigation potential, because along the Agusan River and also downstream, we have protected areas. We have Ramsar sites like the Agusan Marsh, peatlands, no, like the Kaipugan, and all the mountains, no, around Butuan City, those are potential for conservation with value adding on forest carbon project. So what could be the policy recommendation after this? No, hopefully the LGU plans are very much, how to say that, reflective of the SEPLS context. No? Not only thinking about biophysical, but linking biodiversity, linking livelihood, culture, and situating it to be climate proof, should I say, no? Because the plan should be, responsive to the future impacts, future, to say that disasters, no, or future changes in our climate. And community-based livelihood programs capitalizing on biodiversity, like the one we did in Kenya, so aligned with SEPL. So basically, that's it. Again, thank you very much, and congratulations for your integrated study. Have a nice day. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Doc Dixon. Thank you po for your presentation, and thank you for emphasizing the benefits on investing to nature-based solutions, its integration to ecosystem-based adaptation where tradition and culture will also be conserved, and for emphasizing the importance of mangroves in local climate resiliency, and also for presenting the steps on how we go forward with the data that we have by targeting some issues, potential initiatives, local policy recommendations, and so forth. Okay, so now we will go to and we will proceed to answer some questions from our audience. So the floor is open for questions and comments or clarifications for our speaker and for our discussant as well. So let me start by checking our chat box. And I think we have a few questions here and some comments. Okay, so number one, our first question would be from Sir Joel. So how about mangrove-associated species, including beach species? Hindi po ba kasama sa inventory? I think this is for Doc Jess. Doc Jess?
Yes. The mangrove associated species are included, but most of the associated species now are in the form of mga shrubs, no? And we have the list of the species, but it is not, we just prioritize because this is an initial update of what we have done in the field, and it will be updated later for other associated species. But in the area, most of the mangroves are typical in the Philippines are now converted into aquaculture systems. And then the beachfront is now utilized for beach resorts, something like that. So we don't have a lot of that anymore, of those typical beach forest species. And the Butuan area is not also a typical beach forest type. This is a long stretch of mangroves. So not a lot of associated beach forest. Like when you talk about, we are talking about 3 beach forest species. So we also conducted initial assessments in the past, and we don't really have a lot of those typical beach forest species. But once you go to the other side of the Butuan Bay towards some other mountainous ranges, then you have the typical formations, no? The mangroves and then the associated beach forest. But in Butuan, It's just a unique setup that it's mainly a mangrove ang area. It's a floodplain, no? Floodplain, and then we have the salt water brackish marshes. And this is not the typical beach forest. This is silty, the sand, and our beach forests are like rocky and gravel species. So they don't thrive very well on Butuan Bay, particularly the Agusan, Magallanes Channel, in part of the Butuan Bay.
Okay, thank you so much, Doc Jess, for that answer. We have one comment here from French Hechanova. Hi, very insightful findings and stimulated discussion of results. Understanding landscape is such an essential tool for sound decision making and to how we utilize our resources to its maximum potential, shying away from putting pressure. This is really great on considering the EBAs and prioritize LCCAP in local context for transformative change. Also, one question. This may have been common yet to everybody, but I know in research it's essential to acquire gratuitous permit. In this study, it has captured topics from terrestrial to aquatic systems. Was GP just granted from DNR? So I believe yes. Doc Jess, maybe you could add
So
comments
the question is about gratuitous permit. Yes, we have secured a gratuitous permit before we conducted study. This is what I'm going to share with also with other research groups. Dapat your institution or your agency or ikaw mismo, you have a good relationship with DNR. Because in our case, naka-apply pala kami, but they have seen the MOA and everything in all sorts, just like what we did in the past. Then they already told us to, you can do the sampling already. You can proceed while we are waiting for the results of the GP. But of course, both the SEPLS initiative and then we just waited for the GP. So we cannot do the sampling without gratuitous permit, especially when you have indigenous peoples in the area. But in our case, the Barangay Masaw and Tunga, we don't have a lot of IPs, no? So may mga IPs, minorities, but they are already in the mainstream of the society, so they are not really recognized as typical IP-dominated barangay. So that kind of complication is not part of our what we have encountered. But I would, based on other stories in other areas, medyo mabagal yung GP, and GP itself is a rigorous document to secure. But in our case, we have as I have said, we have a good partner in DNR, and they have known us, we have known them, so that's kind of a mutual relationship. So in our case, it's not really a big problem.
Thank you very much, Doc Jess, for emphasizing that and for clarifying that. So we have another comment and question from the same participant. I'll add Doc Dixon here. So agree on the river basin management approach. This is part of the system that is often missed out and easily exploited, say quarrying. This should need to be looked further. So how LGUs dealing on this at the present? Or what's the say of the national agency like DNR? And how is research progressing on this topic? And how it is linked at grassroots? So the question is on the Zoom chat. Perhaps Dr. Dixon could answer on this question.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer this question because, well, the national government is doing something. There is one special office in DNR. It's called the River Basin Control Office. They're really into this. There are, a lot of already mga 8 river basins for the river. They started with the river basins management planning. But again, for those that are not river basins, there are some that still, how to say that, categorized as critical watershed, but still they don't have plan. The real challenge is not only for the DNR, but for the LGUs. So LGUs those municipalities and cities that have forests, they really need to work on their, local mandated plans, particularly mga forest land use plan, and also LCCAP. And very important that they know and they appreciate the the context of integrated watershed. Let me clarify this, because like for example, there is one upstream municipality who wants to, to include in their plan the development of subdivision. And that will for sure, that will spark, or start, landslide, like clearing a forest, converting it to a subdivision. And not necessarily that they will suffer, it's basically the downstream. So the integration, those municipalities should talk to each other, and coming up with a basis for land use planning is very important. That's why integrated watershed assessment and planning should come first, and that can be and should be the basis for cascading. Now, cascading the local development plans, that they can adapt what are the proposals there, or what are the ideal and suitable land uses. So yeah, efforts are there, but again, you know what, the main the main challenge is not really coming up with a plan, it's really implementing the plans. No, we already have, in my involvement, I was part of developing this land use plans, integrated watershed and river basin management plan for, big watersheds in the country, but I don't know how receptive yet, or the local government to adapt those. So yeah, that's where I would say the challenge comes. Thanks for that question.
Thank you so much for Doc Dixon and for that answer, and thank you po Ma'am French for that question. We have some comments here, so thank you to Sir Dixon, from Sir Luigi, and from Doc Buot. I thank Doc Jess for the very thorough presentation, and Director Dixon has a very insightful discussion, and thank you both for your time and expertise. Indeed, we have a great job ahead. Okay, so again, we also have some comments here again from French. How is conversion to aquaculture system still rampant? Maybe Sir Jess could answer on that question.
So I can only speak for the case in Butuan City, but also have going all throughout the different parts in the country. In Mindanao, for example, we had research engagements with the Sarangani areas, and there are aquacultures that are in Caraga region more prominent ang aquaculture, and we are food production, in that case, which is also good. So finding that delicate balance within the preserving the ecosystem at the same time utilizing it for aquaculture is what really is the problem there. There's a gray area that we need to resolve in that matter. So we need to have a food production. Our mangroves offer this kind of what we call an opportunity that we could do it. And our system is already in place, but our laws are not perfect, and there are holes and patches in which, according to Sir Dixon here, that is where the local governance could take place. What is happening on the field, they should also listen to the academe, to the research community, and provide insight. I mean, we could provide them insights in terms of policies and help them in terms of the governance. But of course, there are different layers in the politics that we also don't understand. But that is where many of the problems, mga human settlements, conflict, utilization, and priority, because the politicians is prioritizing this or something like that. So Sir Dixon already presented the overall perspective of where these problems are stemming from. So yeah, in case of Butuan City, it's also a problem. But I'm just saying that aquaculture is not per se good. We have a lot of seafoods here. We like that, no? Staying in other places in the Philippines, I like it much better here. We have a lot of seafoods that we can buy in much cheaper compared to when you go to Metro Manila, in a stark contradiction. So that's it. maybe Sir Dixon could also add some more on that.
Yeah. Just to put it in a positive, how to say that, perspective. Science is telling us that I don't want to criminalize aquaculture, although I'm pro mangrove conservation, but the science is telling us that people have needs too, right? No, and it's just that finding that balance is very important. No, so studies are saying that if you have 4:1 mangrove, like 4 hectares of mangroves and 1 aquaculture farm, that would be an ideal setup. So if we keep on, conveying that science, no, not only to the local government, not only to be far, but to the local communities, no, then that will, go a long way. Yung sasabi nga natin, talking about SEPLS and transformative change. And to achieve the transformative change, they must be conscious that they are a major player, not only at the coast, but also, connected to the upstream. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Doc Jess and Doc Dixon, for that answer. I think we could accommodate one last question since we're already over time. So we have one question here from Sir John Patrick. Hi, thank you for this presentation, and this is very insightful. I am a landscape architecture student. May I ask, how is designing ecological parks would help in revitalizing landscapes and seascapes, or would this really help or would cause more disturbance? Maybe we could start with Doc Jess.
All right. So in the local context, we have I'm not sure how many we have here in Butuan City area about ecological parks. But one park that we tried to measure in terms of ecological characteristic is what we have here in Butuan City. Nearby, they are familiar with the Buod Promontory. So it's more than, I think, around 20 years, no? And that ecological park is now planted with different. The same way in Manila, we have the arroceros, no, if I'm not mistaken. So eventually the arroceros has brought into the limelight because of there's no open spaces anymore in Metro Manila. So my position is really to develop these ecological parks, not only for the aesthetics and everything, but this could also be an ecological refuge, just like is what is happening in Metro Manila. So if you are looking into arroceros now, it has become a national, what we call this, a topic, no? Because we have already found out the importance of ecological parks. No? In Butuan City, we have measured these characteristics what are planted. Now, it harbors now many of the species that are endangered, no, because DNR has been planting and then the LGU. So it can be developed into something else. No, it's just about putting the proper perspective. What is the priority species or ecological priority in terms of ecological services of our ecological parks? Some in Baguio, they have this. We have in Los Baños, we have Mount Makiling also. And this is more about the idea or the characteristic of ecological park that we would want to. So as much as you would like to have so many ecological parks in an area in Butuan City, we have about 3, I think, and then there are still some more. Some areas are designed for tourist, visitation. Some are designed for open spaces, and some are designed for this particular purposes. No, in the outlet of mangroves in Barangay Pagatpatan, one initiative that we also have with the barangay at that time was to have a ecological park with our different because Butuan City is from the root word Butuan. That's the outlet of the Agusan River. So we would like to preserve that kind of integrity that in Butuan, this is where the Butuan came from. It's the outlet of the Agusan. It's the Butuan. And along with our different species of mangroves and species of along the Butuan River. So something like that in the past, no? So I think that's what I can share about ecological parks in the local context.
Thank you so much, Doc Jess. Perhaps Sir Dixon could add on that. Pa-unmute po, sir.
Thank you for that question. Let me just to answer it, let me just show some photos, because this is the same question I got when I delivered this topic on mangroves in blue-green shades. And very interestingly, ecological parks being used to, i-jump ko na ha, because this is very long, quite a long. Let me show you some photos. This is too much gray. This is not ecological park, of course, but many of the response of the government, to prevent disasters are like this somewhere in Japan. So too much gray and seawall killing the mangroves at the back, like this one in Manila. So again, EPA, very important. Green infrastructure is okay. It's like ecological park, like in Bonggon sa Temple in Gangnam-gu, and like this in Karatsu City in Saga Prefecture, Japan. They left this strip of vegetation. It's an ecological park too. And again, developing ecological parks needs, you have to start with the basic. What's the purpose? Is this just aesthetics? But more so asking that question with factoring in climate change. Like for example, you have floods. You have to manage floods. At the same time, it's multi-purpose. Your park is for aesthetics too, for livelihood, di ba? Yan yung maganan. So we have to minimize the gray, but more on the green to make it ecological. Yan, ganun yan eh. And like this one, is usually being flooded, but they develop like this. Mayroon kang green and gray, and perhaps during summer season, cleared of grass. It's a concert area. Like this one, it's in Seoul. No, it's a exercising area, jogging area. At the same time, it's a storm drain. No, so yeah, ecological parks. I would agree that they have a lot of benefits, but we have to do it consciously. No. Yeah, like this one in Iloilo. It's Esplanade, no? Very nice, no? What's the purpose? Of course, it's number one is aesthetic, but it's communicating to the people there that we also need to protect the mangroves, no? Yeah, this one, the Azure Awards, somewhere in China, they're very good, no? Look, like this. Yeah. Just sharing out the ecological park. I agree with that, but again, it should be done with great consciousness. We have to know the value. We have to know, will this benefit many stakeholders, or else if it's just a park of no purpose, then not sustainable, not helpful at all. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Dixon, for that additional information and for answering that question. We are already over time, but thank you for their comments. Thank you for everyone who participated and for sending your questions. And of course, thank you, Doc Jess Jumawan, for presenting the preliminary findings of our program and for answering the questions from our participants. And also, we'd like to extend our deepest thanks to Doc Dixon for the discussion and for the additional information that you have provided for us today. We will now proceed to the awarding of certificates. Okay. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Wait lang. Okay. So we would like to present this Certificate of Appreciation, the University of the Philippines Open University and University of the Philippines Las Bañas, the Emerging Interdisciplinary Research Building Climate Smart Communities Program, awards this Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Jess H. Jumawan for serving as resource speaker during the webinar topic entitled Preliminary Assessment of Flora and Fauna Assemblages in Satoyama-Satoumi Landscapes in Butuan City of the Revitalizing Socio-Ecological Production Landscapes and Seascapes Webinar Series held on September 29, 2022 via Zoom, given this 29th day of September 2022 at the Institute of Biological Sciences, University of the Philippines, Las Bañas, signed Dr. Ricardo T. Bagarinao, Professor and Program Leader, Dr. Inocencio Ibuot Jr., Professor and Project 1 Leader, and Dr. Joanne B. Serrano, Professor and Program Manager. We would also like to present this Certificate of Appreciation to Sir Dr. Dixon T. Gevaña for serving as discussant during the webinar topic entitled Preliminary Assessment of Flora and Fauna Assemblages in Satoyama-Satoumi Landscapes in Butuan City of the Revitalizing Socio-Ecological Production Landscapes and Seascapes Webinar Series held and given this day of 29th day of September 2022 at the Institute of Biological Sciences, University of the Philippines, Los Baños, signed Dr. Ricardo T. Bagarinao, Dr. Inocencio Buot, and Dr. Joanne B. Serrano. Okay, for our announcements, we would like to invite you once again on our next webinar episode on October 27, 2022. That is a Thursday at 10 a.m. with the scope on cultural landscape and agro-biodiversity conservation and management. So this will be presented by Ma'am Yulali Dolnuan. She is the current Supervising Administrative Officer of the National Museum of the Philippines and a former Director of the Globally Important Agricultural Heritage Systems, or GIAS, Research and Development Center in Cagayan Province. So interested participants may scan the QR code as you can see here at posted, and the link will also be provided via Zoom chat and Facebook live comment. And for our last announcement, certificate of completion will be awarded to those who will be able to participate to webinars from the very first episode from March 2022 up to our last event in December. Okay, so that is all, and may I request everyone to open up their cameras for our photo opportunity. Okay, so open na po natin ang ating camera, and I will move my spotlight. Okay, so while waiting po sa ating participants to open their cameras, let me just share po yung ating evaluation link sa ating Facebook Live para po sa mga nanonood sa atin sa Facebook Live. Okay. Wait lang po. Okay, so open na po ang ating cameras. Ayan, so acknowledging the presence po of our project leader, Doc June Buot. Good morning po. And our project staff, Sir Mark. Good morning po. How's Taiwan?
Sir Mark.
Okay, so sige po, I'll start. Ano na po tayo? Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. We have 3 slides po. Second slide. 1, 2, wait lang po. Ayusin ko lang po ang ating saan na yun? Okay, sige po, let's proceed. Next slide. 1, 2, 3, smile. And for our last slide, 1, 2, 3, smile. Although naka-off yung camera, but okay, sige po. Let me just again, thank you po for joining our webinar this morning, and we are very much honored, Doc Jess, to have you with us, and Doc Dixon to have you with us. I hope that everyone gained new perspective, new insights with this webinar this morning, and the evaluation form is already shared sa Zoom chat box and sa FB Live po natin. So just a quick reminder, we will stop accepting evaluations in 6 hours after the event has concluded. So on behalf of Project 1 of the Emerging Interdisciplinary Research and Building Climate Smart Communities Program, or EIDR-bSMART Program, we would like to thank you all for joining us today. And we hope that you will also join us again on our next event on October 27. So mark your calendars, or better yet, you can register now so we could send the details to you as soon as possible. So have a great day, everyone, and God bless us all.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you. Thank you, Jess, ha? Dixon.
You're welcome,
Si
sir.
Mark naman ay cool ka lang dyan sa Taiwan. Easy lang.
God bless po.
Thank you po. Thank you po, Sir Jess.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Through this monthly webinar series, we would like to enhance awareness of the socio-ecological production landscapes and seascapes, or the Satoyama concept. The concept is anchored on the principle, or we call it the philosophy, of living in harmony with nature. Satoyama initiative has been approved by the Conference of the Parties of the Convention on Biological Diversity in 2010 as a strategic approach in biodiversity conservation, also ecosystem landscape conservation.
The Philippine sepals are threatened due to population pressure brought by rapid migration of families suffering from poverty in the lowlands and land use policy. And we can see all these problems lead to the degradation of our sepals. These cultural landscapes continue to fight over the impacts of poverty, population pressure, and proliferation of modern agricultural practices, which have exacerbated the erosion of indigenous knowledge system. The sepals sustainability is one strategy to conserve our rich biodiversity.
In the Philippines, we have seen how degraded our natural resources are. So there's really a lack of the traditional knowledge as well as the deep appreciation when it comes to their landscape. And we have seen out-migration. Once they're able to find more stable jobs, the Ifugaos, both youth and the working population, would really migrate outside of Ifugao, leaving the Ifugao rice terraces abandoned. So it's really important that given the wide variation in the socio-ecological makeup of sepals globally and locally, as well as in their political and economic context, individual communities will be at the forefront of developing appropriate measures for their unique circumstances.
So yung challenge ko sa inyo for this one is to change the way we grow food and ask ourselves, are my actions beneficial to the landscape? Permaculture is one way. It's a design philosophy, a design framework na you can use to grow food in a way na not just for growing food or for food security, but also you have in mind yung health ng inyong landscape, ng ecosystem, and of species na nakatira doon.
Without any external inputs, we can do agriculture permanently because one of the aspects of ecosystem services could be harnessed when all of this place is intact. So we just basically harnessing what's in the environment would provide us. So now people would initially thought about the sepals and then the permaculture design. What are these two concepts all about, or practices or movements? Are they opposing forces? And it's very clear that our speaker really told us that the sepals is based on the landscape or seascape ecosystem reliance, where the permaculture is about ecological design system. So instead of viewing them as opposing forces, so to speak, in thought, we could rather create a harmony, so that the interactive components, the synergy and interconnectivity of those two components, the sepals and permaculture, because they are operating the same platform. We have the different landscapes and seascapes, but consciously designing to augment both two aspects desired for sustainability of our ecosystem, that we could harness a much better ecosystem services without jeopardizing our environment.
So we have to start earlier in restoring our ecosystem. And I have to say, it's not an easy task, practically. Yeah? We are challenged by awareness, we are challenged by lack of resources, we are challenged by climate change, we are challenged by economic system, we are challenged by government policy imposition, all sort of things. So don't ask me when is. I think it is a time to take action. After this seminar, start to think about collecting seeds. Reconnect with your rural friends. Ask for some local seeds. How do you do that planting? Engaging your kids. Take action.
We can also maybe level up this idea of ecosystem to not just a plainly homogeneous area in our environment, but rather looking at distinct patches, or maybe like in the context of a Satoyama. A Satoyama is a collection of different land uses or patches. So maybe an environmental unit that we could restore or that we could accelerate its recovery is at that level where we could see different patches of lands.
The civil society organization play a vital role in promoting sustainable socio-ecological production landscape and seascape utilization and management by connecting various stakeholders to support local communities, and also by producing policy recommendation through on-the-ground experience and disseminating information and story of self-sustainable management to public. One of the very interesting secret or tip to work with government organization is polite but persistent This is the term that they use. You cannot stop or cannot give up to make the governmental side understand your objective. And then if they cannot accept the way that you work, so start to talk to them and make them learn and adjust the way of working together. Because finally, both sides has the same goal to conserve natural forests or natural resources, but the mean or the way of working may be different. So just try to find the same, the point that everyone can collaborate.
And hopefully, this will spread out not only in Thailand, but also in areas where such undertaking is applicable. Hopefully, the involvement of civil society groups and other organizations towards restoring seascapes and landscapes will continue, and more groups or individuals will join. So we need to restore and sustain our sociological production landscape and seascapes for the benefit of the humanity and the environment.